The hidden secret. The galaxy was full of secrets, but some secrets were heavier than others. Warp technology was one of them, the kind of power that could move ships across the stars in moments. The Alien Council, made up of the oldest and most powerful races, decided long ago that humans should never touch this knowledge. They whispered among themselves that humans were too dangerous, too curious, too unpredictable. So they locked the warp blueprints away, buried them inside codes, traps and warnings hidden in vaults only the Council could access to the rest of the galaxy. The lie was simple. Humans were not ready, but humans were not fools. They noticed the way alien fleets moved faster than physics should allow. They noticed the way messages arrived from systems too far away to reach by normal speed. They noticed how, every time they asked about warp drive, the aliens smiled politely and changed the subject. On Earth, whispers began. Why hide something so important unless they were afraid of us? One cold night, deep space scanners on the edge of the solar system picked up a signal. It was faint, broken, almost like a ghost. The signal came from a drifting alien ship long abandoned. Most believed it was just wreckage forgotten after some old battle. But to humans, every piece of alien tech was treasure. The ship was pulled in, studied, and opened carefully. Inside, the walls hummed with dying power, and in the corner of the ruined control room sat a black cube. It pulsed once, twice, then flickered to life. The cube carried data, shards of warp calculations, half corrupted, half intact. The Alien Council had placed a warning in the data, a simple message written in a dozen alien languages. Do not let them know. The words confused the scientists. Who was not supposed to know? And why hide it? Human engineers gathered around. The fragments. At first, the alien designs looked like nonsense. Layers of math stacked over traps. Lines of false data meant to mislead. But then one young engineer, barely 20, pointed out a pattern. These numbers, they look like orbital mechanics just twisted, she said. Others checked, and soon the room filled with tension. It was like looking at a puzzle where the pieces didn't match, until suddenly, they did. Something in human minds. Something about the way they saw connections made the code start to unravel. Hours turned into days, and the cube became less of a mystery and more of a mirror. The aliens had built warp equations to look impossible, but humans saw them differently. Every lock the Council designed to take centuries, humans broke in hours. Every trap meant to confuse, humans twisted into shortcuts. The scientists were not just reading the code, they were rewriting it. Soon, their blackboards filled with numbers, shapes, and diagrams. Some laughed in disbelief, others stayed silent, afraid of what it meant. They were not just studying alien tech anymore, they were building it. But the galaxy was not blind. Sensors far away blinked to life as the black cube activated. Somewhere, deep in the halls of the Galactic Council, a light flashed red on a console. The old races turned to one another, nervous. Someone has touched the sealed code, an elder whispered. Another hissed, impossible. Only we have the keys. But the truth was clear. Humans had found the forbidden secret. On Earth, the experiments continued. Engines hummed in underground labs and screens flickered with unstable test runs. Every mistake exploded in sparks, but every failure taught them something new. Why would they hide this? One engineer muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Another answered, because they knew we would solve it faster than they did. No one laughed, no one argued, because deep down, they all knew it was true. The secret was no longer hidden. The secret was alive, and in the quiet of that lab, in the glow of screens and humming engines, the future of humanity changed. The aliens thought they could bury warp forever, but humanity had cracked the first lock, and the sound of that crack echoed across the stars, a sound the galaxy would never forget. First contact with the forbidden. The black cube sat in the center of the lab, glowing faintly, as if alive. Every time human hands touched its surface, lines of light spread across it like veins, shifting colors with every movement. The alien warning still burned in their minds. Do not let them know. But curiosity was stronger than fear. Humans had never been the type to stop at warnings. Teams of engineers, soldiers, and scientists gathered in hidden chambers beneath Earth's surface. The council above them kept silent, pretending not to notice. But the whispers had already started. Something had been unlocked, something powerful, and it was spreading like fire through every research center. Even the military had joined in, sending officers to observe but secretly waiting for weapons. The cube's fragments were more than blueprints. They were a challenge. Every puzzle humans cracked led to another. It was as if the aliens had designed the technology to test patience. But patience was something humans carried in abundance. Late one night, a mechanic named Darius leaned over the flickering codes. He was not the smartest, not the fastest, but he had an eye for patterns. He stared at a string of alien numbers that looped endlessly. Then, with a laugh, he muttered, "They built this like a lock, but we're not using the key. We're breaking the door." Within minutes, what had stumped 3 alien empires for decades fell apart under his pencil. The room went silent, then filled with cheers. Humans were not just reading alien secrets, they were rewriting them. The first prototype was built in secret, hidden under the oceans, far from alien eyes. It was no larger than a shuttle, a fragile frame with wires and glowing coils. Its heart was the human version of warp technology, crude but alive. When the reactor lit, the entire chamber shook. The water above rippled, and the shuttle disappeared into silence. For a moment, everyone thought it had failed. Then, an operator screamed, "It's back!" The shuttle reappeared on the other side of the chamber, metal warped but intact. Humanity had done what the Council thought impossible, but the forbidden always carried a price. Signals rippled through space, carried by old alien trackers buried in the cube. Far across the stars, a Council elder sat, up in his chamber, pale and shaking. "They touched the engine," he whispered. The others scoffed. "They are too primitive." But the data did not lie. The humans had not only touched it, they had activated it. On Earth, tension rose. Some scientists wanted to stop, fearing what would come if aliens discovered the truth, but most refused. "Knowledge is never safe if kept locked," one woman said, her eyes bright with fire. "Either we master it, or we stay slaves forever." Her words echoed. In the room, no one spoke against her. The experiments grew bolder. Each test ship jumped further, first across the ocean chamber, then across Earth's orbit. Every time, they improved the design, adding stabilizers, reworking alien traps into shortcuts. Soon what had once been impossible became simple. Warp was no longer forbidden. It was human. But the shadows were moving. At the edge of the solar system, alien ships cloaked themselves, watching silently. Their commanders sent urgent reports back to the Council. "The humans cracked it faster than expected," one said, voice heavy, with fear. "If they keep going, we will not control them much longer." The Council argued, fought, and whispered. But deep inside they were afraid. Afraid of what humans might do with forbidden fire. Back in the lab, the engineers stared at their work. The first true human warp engine sat before them, glowing like a captured star. One scientist whispered, "We were never meant to find this." Another smiled. "No, we were always meant to." The difference between alien fear and human courage was simple. Humans refused to wait. And with every pulse of the engine, the future drew closer. The Galaxy believed humans would stumble, fail, or fear the unknown. But humans leaned into the unknown, cracked it open, and made it theirs. The forbidden was no longer forbidden. It was the beginning. And somewhere, in the silence of the stars, the Council felt the first chill of dread. Because what they had hidden for centuries was now in human hands, and once humans touched something, they never let go. The Council watches. The Galactic Council chamber was a place of silence and fear. Tall pillars rose into the shadows. Banners of ancient empires hung heavy, and the air itself seemed thick with pride. It was here that the greatest races of the galaxy gathered, those who claimed wisdom earned through thousands of years. They believed their word was law, and they believed their secrets would remain unbroken. But now a single message shattered their comfort. "Humans have touched warp," the report said. The words fell like a stone in still water, sending ripples through the council. Some elders laughed, waving the report aside. "Deathworlders are reckless but not clever," one hissed, his skin glimmering under the lights. "They stumble at every step." Another sneered, "They cannot master what took us centuries." Yet others did not laugh. They leaned forward, eyes sharp, claws or tendrils tapping against stone. "What if the report is true?" one asked quietly. "What if the humans have done what none of us expected?" For a moment silence filled the hall, a silence thicker than the void between stars. A hollow screen flickered to life, showing grainy images from cloaked ships near Earth. The council watched as a human shuttle blinked in and out of space, broken and sparking but alive. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. "That is a warp slip," one elder whispered, his voice trembling. "Impossible." Another growled, but his hands shook. The proof was before them, undeniable. "They have cracked the first layer," the envoy said, bowing low. "If they continue, they will soon surpass the safeguards." The chamber erupted in noise, shouts, growls, hisses, and whispers. Some demanded action, others demanded silence. Fear clashed with arrogance, and arrogance clashed with truth. One elder, old enough to remember the first wars of the galaxy, spoke above the noise. "You fools hid warp because you feared it would be used against you," he said. "And now the very race you feared most has it in their hands." His words made the chamber quiet, because everyone knew it was true. In hidden labs on Earth, the scientists worked without pause. They had no idea their every step was being watched, their every breakthrough recorded by alien eyes. But even if they knew, they would not stop. Humans had always moved forward, even when warned, even when threatened. The forbidden only tempted them more. Back in the council chamber, a decision was made. A fleet would be sent, cloaked and armed, not to fight but to monitor. "Let them play with their toy," one elder said with a cruel smile. "They will destroy themselves soon enough." But others disagreed. "They are not destroying themselves." One replied, "They are perfecting it." Whispers spread through the galaxy like a storm. On mining colonies, on trade routes, in dark taverns where smugglers gathered, the rumor spread. "Humans touched warp," they whispered. "Humans cracked the code." At first, no one believed it, but then the stories grew louder. Some alien captains swore they saw human ships testing strange engines near the edge of Sol. Others swore that human ships disappeared from scanners faster than light should allow. The galaxy began to tremble, not from war, but from fear of what was coming on Earth. The human military took notice. Generals walked the labs, their boots heavy on metal floors. They watched the glowing cores, the hum of engines, the way scientists whispered with awe. "What can it do in battle?" a general asked. The lead engineer replied simply, "Anything we want." Those words spread through the halls like fire. It was not just science anymore. It was power. The council's spies sent one final warning. "The humans are not failing," the message said. "They are learning faster than we expected." The council read the words, their faces pale, their pride cracking like thin glass. They had hidden warp tech for centuries, believing they alone controlled it. But now, in only weeks, humans had torn it open and bent it to their will. The chamber dimmed as the elders sat in silence. One finally spoke, his voice a whisper but heavy with fear. "If they master this, the galaxy will no longer belong to us." Another answered, voice sharp, "No, it will belong to them." The galaxy had always underestimated humanity, but now as the council watched grainy images of human ships testing forbidden fire, they began to understand. This was not just another species. This was a force they could not contain. And for the first time in centuries, the council felt powerless. The prototype awakens. Deep beneath the oceans of Earth, in a chamber carved out of rock and steel, the first true human warp prototype stood waiting. The room buzzed with tension, the walls trembling with the hum of reactors, every light flickering as if the air itself was afraid. The shuttle looked fragile compared to the massive alien cruisers in the galaxy, but to the humans gathered, it was the most important ship. In history, it was not built to impress, it was built to work. Engineers moved around it like shadows, checking wires, tightening bolts, wiping sweat from their faces. Soldiers stood at the edge of the chamber, their eyes cold, knowing the test could change. The balance of power forever. One general whispered, "If this works, nothing in the galaxy will stop us." The lead scientist did not answer. She only pressed her hand against the hull, feeling it shake with energy. At the center of the shuttle pulsed the human warp core, a rough sphere of metal and glowing coils. It hummed like a heart, each beat stronger than the last. Alien designs had been twisted into human logic, messy, but brilliant. What had been, locked for centuries, now lived in a machine built by human hands. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The voices echoed across the chamber. At 3, the air grew heavy, as if the world itself held its breath. At 1, the core flared and the shuttle vanished. For a long moment, there was only silence. The screens went dark, the instruments flatlined, and fear gripped the humans in the room. Had it failed? Had it torn itself apart? Had they reached too far? Then a voice broke the silence, trembling but alive. "Reading. I'm reading it." It reappeared. The shuttle had reappeared outside the test chamber, light years away from where it had begun. Damaged, cracked, but whole. The humans erupted in cheers, their voices shaking the chamber. Tears streamed down faces, fists rose high, and even the soldiers allowed themselves a rare smile. Humanity had done the impossible. But not all eyes watching were friendly, far above Earth. Cloaked alien vessels recorded every moment. Their commanders sent urgent signals back to the Galactic Council. The humans did not just test it, the message read. They succeeded. In the council chamber, panic spread. "They are children playing with fire," one elder spat. "They will burn the galaxy with their recklessness." But others saw something different in the images. "They are not stumbling," one whispered. "They are running." Back in the chamber, the shuttle was dragged back inside. Engineers swarmed it, noting every scar, every spark, every weakness. They knew it was only the first step, but it was a step no one could take away from them. The forbidden had been broken, and now it belonged to humanity. The general leaned close to the lead scientist. "Can you make it bigger?" he asked. She looked at the glowing core and smiled faintly. "Not just bigger," she said. "Better." Tests continued for weeks, each one longer, faster, stronger. The shuttle became a ship. The ship became a prototype war vessel. Every jump was smoother, every engine more stable. Alien traps inside the code were not just avoided. They were turned into advantages. The humans were not just learning, they were innovating. Rumors spread through the galaxy. Smugglers claimed they saw human ships vanishing from scanners, reappearing miles ahead. Merchants whispered that Earth had found a way to outrun even the fastest council fleets. Some races laughed, others trembled, because deep down, everyone knew. If humans truly mastered warp, the galaxy would change forever. In secret, the military prepared their first crude test. Volunteers stepped forward without hesitation, pilots eager to ride history itself. One young pilot strapped into the seat whispered, "If I don't come back, at least I'll be the first." The engines roared. The core flared brighter than ever before, and with a scream of energy, the ship vanished. The council fleets moved closer to Earth, cloaked and armed. They told themselves they were only observing, but fear guided their hands. One commander growled, "If they unleash this power, we will never contain them." Another whispered, "It is already too late." When the test ship returned, alive and intact, humanity crossed a line. There was no going back, no hiding, no slowing down. The prototype had awakened, and with it, the galaxy itself stirred in dread. The humans stood before their creation, the glow of the warp core lighting their faces. They were no longer asking if they could, now they were asking what came next. And the answer was simple: everything. Clash of truth. The prototype's success shook the halls of Earth's hidden labs, but outside the planet's blue skies, danger was already moving. Cloaked alien fleets drifted at the edge of the solar system, their weapons ready, their orders clear. If humanity dared to rise too far, they would be crushed. The Galactic Council could no longer pretend. Every report confirmed what they feared. Humans had cracked warp not by accident, not by luck, but by sheer will. The code that was meant to stop them had become the path forward. The locks had become doors, the traps had become shortcuts, and now, Earth had something the rest of the galaxy could not control. Envoys were sent, their ships shining like blades as they entered orbit. They did not come with gifts, they came with threats, hidden in polished words. The Council's speaker stood, before the human leaders, voice sharp as steel. "You are reckless children," he said. "You have touched fire that will burn not only you but all around you." The humans listened in silence, their faces calm, but their eyes were hard. They had heard these tones before, tones of empires who believed only they had the right to rule. Finally, a human general stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with fire. "You call it fire," he said, "but to us, it is light. You hid it, you lied to us, and still we found it," the envoy hissed. "You will destroy yourselves." The general answered, "Maybe, but not before we change everything." The Council tried to push harder, threatening sanctions, trade blockades, even war. But humanity no longer trembled. For the first time, Earth stood tall. They had cracked the forbidden, and now they knew the truth. The galaxy feared them not because they were reckless, but because they were relentless in the shadows of space. The first human warship powered up. It was not as large as the Council's dreadnoughts, not as polished, but it was alive. At its heart burned the human warp core, humming with stolen fire now made their own. The moment it came online, the stars seemed to shake. Alarms blared in alien fleets hiding in the void. "They've done it," a commander whispered, his voice cracking. "They have built a warship with warp." Back on Earth, the lead scientist watched the glowing engine, her hands trembling but her voice calm. "They thought we would take centuries," she said. "We took weeks." Soldiers saluted. Pilots lined up. Engineers smiled through exhaustion. They all knew they were part of something history would never forget. The alien envoy made one last attempt, standing before the human council, his eyes burning with fear and anger. "Stand down," he commanded. "Destroy the engine before it destroys you." But the human leader, an old woman with scars from Earth's wars, shook her head slowly. "You do not understand us," she said. "We do not stand down, not when we are told to kneel." Her words echoed like thunder. The envoy left in silence. His mission failed. In the council chamber across the stars, rage and fear clashed. "They are out of control," one shouted. "They must be stopped now," another cried. But no one offered a plan, because every plan they imagined ended with the same truth. Humans would not stop. In orbit, the first human warship prepared for its maiden test. Its crew stood ready, their hands shaking but their hearts steady. "Once we jump," the captain said, "the galaxy will know." The engines roared, space bent, and in an instant, the ship was gone. Moments later it reappeared across the system, its hull glowing but intact. The crew cheered, their voices echoing through the stars. Earth had crossed the final line. The Council's spies sent back their reports. "The humans no longer copy," one wrote. "They innovate." "They are not following us," another said. "They are leading." The clash of truth was no longer hidden. The galaxy could lie to itself no more. Humans had touched warp, mastered warp, and now weaponized warp. What was once forbidden was now a blade in their hands. And the Council, for the first time in centuries, had no answer. In the silence of space, the human warship drifted, its engines glowing with impossible fire. The captain sent a single message, short and sharp. "To those who hid the truth from us," he said, "know this. We are not afraid of your secrets, and we will never stop." And with that, humanity stepped fully into the unknown, not as beggars, not as children, but as a force the galaxy would never again ignore. The human leap. The first human warship returned from its test run with fire still glowing in its engines. The crew stepped. Out eyes wide, voices trembling, but every word carried pride. "We did it," the captain whispered, and the chamber erupted with cheers. What once belonged only to ancient empires now pulsed in human hands. But this was only the beginning. The prototype was proof, but humanity had never been content with proof. They wanted more, faster, stronger, safer. The scientists tore apart the engine again, studying every scar and every flicker. Mistakes became improvements, weaknesses became strength. Each day the warp core hummed louder, steadier, sharper. Soon, more ships were fitted with the new drives, not just shuttles or warships, but explorers too. Humanity's dream had always been the stars, and now the stars were no longer distant. They could be touched, crossed, and reached in moments. It was a leap that no one could undo. The first fleet assembled in secret orbit above Earth. 7 ships, each carrying the pulse of warp fire in their cores. They were rough compared to alien vessels, their hulls scarred and their engines still. Experimental. But when they aligned together, their formation burned brighter than any polished council cruiser. Pilots whispered to each other, voices tight with excitement. "We are about to change the galaxy," one said. Another replied, "No, we already did." On the other side of space, alien commanders panicked. Reports flooded in, ships vanishing from scanners, reappearing in impossible places. Merchants swore human vessels crossed routes in hours that once took weeks. Spies confirmed. Entire fleets had begun to move faster than light should allow. The council called emergency meetings, their chambers filled with fear. "They are no longer behind us," an elder growled. "They are ahead." In the hidden labs, the lead scientist stood before the generals, her hands trembling but her smile steady. "They thought we would mimic them," she said, "but we built something new." The generals leaned forward, their voices heavy with expectation. "Can it be scaled?" one asked. Her answer was simple. "Yes, Earth's skies filled with launches, rockets carrying parts, cores, and crews into orbit. Factories worked without pause, entire cities devoted to building engines. Every human hand, from mechanic to pilot, carried a piece of the leap, and the leap grew larger with every passing day." The council watched, powerless. Their fleets patrolled, near Sol, but they did not strike. They knew that an attack would no longer be simple, because every second they delayed, humans grew faster, stronger, harder to catch. "Every moment we wait, they climb higher," an elder warned. But no one could find an answer, because humanity had already left them behind. The first human fleet tested their jump. 7 ships lined up in silence, the stars reflecting on their hulls. "Engage," the captain commanded. The cores flared, and in an instant the fleet vanished. Alien sensors scrambled, signals crashing. Minutes later, the fleet reappeared across the system, intact, unbroken, and faster than any fleet before. The crews shouted with joy, their laughter echoing through the comms. They had not just leaped forward, they had leaped beyond. Rumors spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Oppressed races whispered that humanity had cracked the forbidden lock. Smugglers and mercenaries swore that humans moved like ghosts through space. And small colonies under council rule began to hope. Because if humans could defy the council, maybe they could too. Back on Earth, leaders gathered. Some spoke of defense, others of expansion, and a few of conquest. But all agreed on one truth. There was no going back. Once a leap was made, the ground behind disappeared. Now only the stars stretched ahead. In the council chamber, fear turned into quiet rage. "They will spread," one elder whispered. "They will rise," another added. The oldest among them closed his eyes and said, "They will lead." And in the silence of space, humanity prepared its next step. The leap was no longer secret, no longer hidden. It was open, alive, and unstoppable. The galaxy had tried to chain them, but humans broke the chains and built engines from the pieces. Now, as their ships lit, the void with fire, one message burned brighter than all. This is humanity's leap. The galaxy trembles. The human fleet drifted in silence above Earth. 7 ships pulsed with the glow of their warp cores, each one beating like a living heart. From the ground below, millions looked up at the sky, their eyes wide, their breaths held. For the first time, humanity was no longer trapped by distance. They had broken the wall and the stars had become theirs. News spread faster than light. Whispers carried through trade lanes, echoed in spaceports, and burned across council worlds. Humans have warp, they said. Humans built what was forbidden. And with every retelling, the fear grew stronger. Because no one believed humans would stop at building ships, the Galactic Council gathered once again. The chamber shook. With anger and fear, some demanded war, shouting that humans must be destroyed before they spread further. Others demanded silence, whispering that war would only prove what they already feared. But deep inside, every elder knew the truth. The galaxy had changed and nothing could turn it back. Alien fleets patrolled the borders of Sol, but they did not fire. They watched, trembling, as human warships blinked in and out of sensors. One moment here, the next moment light years away. No blockade could hold them. No trap could catch them. Every alien commander sent the same report. They are moving faster than we can follow. On Earth, pilots trained day and night. Every jump grew smoother, every mission stronger. What began as a fragile experiment was now a weapon. And with each success, humanity's confidence grew. They no longer asked if they could lead. They asked when. In the outer colonies, oppressed species watched with hope. For centuries, the Council had ruled them with fear, hiding knowledge, controlling trade, crushing rebellion. But now, a new force had appeared, a force that had defied the chains of secrecy. "If the humans can rise," whispered a miner on a frozen moon, "maybe we can too." Across the stars, that whisper became a fire. Back in the council chamber, the oldest elder spoke, his voice heavy with dread. "We hid the truth from them," he said, "and they built it better." No one argued. No one denied. Because outside their walls, the proof was burning bright in the sky. The first human fleet spread beyond Sol. They did not move cautiously. They moved with purpose, jumping to distant systems, testing their engines, marking their presence. Wherever they arrived, alien outposts stared in silence, because for the first time, it was humans who arrived first, not as beggars, not as children, but as equals, no, as rivals. In the secret meeting rooms of alien empires, leaders whispered plans. "How do we contain them?" one asked. But the answer was silence, because how do you contain those who refuse to be contained? How do you chain those who break every chain? On Earth, the lead scientist stood before the fleet. Her voice carried through comms. "We were told we were not ready," she said. "We were told to wait, to kneel, to obey." Her voice grew sharper, filled with fire. "But we are humans, and when the door is closed, we break it open." The crews roared with pride, their voices echoing across the stars. The galaxy trembled, not because of what humans had, but because of what they were. Relentless, stubborn, unyielding. They did not just unlock warp, they transformed it, improved it, weaponized it. What was hidden became their fire, and that fire was spreading. One human commander sent the final message, his words sharp and unforgettable. "To those who feared us enough to hide the truth," he said, "you were right to be afraid. We are not here to follow," he continued. "We are here to lead." The fleet vanished into warp, leaving only silence behind. Alien fleets scrambled to track them, but their sensors found nothing. Only echoes, only shadows, because humanity was already beyond their reach. And so, in every corner of the galaxy, fear became respect, respect became dread, and dread became inevitability. The Council had ruled for centuries, but their rule had ended the moment humanity touched forbidden fire. Now, as the stars themselves seemed to bend around human ships, the truth was clear. The galaxy no longer belonged to the old empires, it now trembled in the hands of humanity.